Okay, so let's talk about betta fish care. If you're thinking about getting a betta fish, or even if you already do, you don't want to miss this. I've been keeping betta fish for many years, and these are the top 5 tips regarding betta fish care. I've boiled it down to the key concepts to keep it really simple, so these are all very important tips. Without further ado, first, get a 5-gallon tank or larger. I know that many of the betta tanks sold in aquarium shops are only 1 to 2 gallons in size, but let me tell you from experience, I don't recommend it. You might be able to keep your betta alive in these small containers, but it's going to be difficult. Smaller environments are less stable, which means there's very little room for error. For example, let's say your aquarium heater went out. In that case, the temperature will drop much more quickly in that 1-gallon tank than your 5-gallon tank. Especially if you're new to fish keeping, these super small nano tanks below 5 gallons is not recommended. Besides, I think your betta fish will appreciate a little bit of room to swim and explore in a 5-gallon tank. Next, this brings us to the tank setup. Now that you have your 5-gallon tank, at the bare minimum, get an aquarium filter and heater. You may have seen professional breeders in Thailand keeping healthy bettas with no heaters and filters, but I assume you aren't a professional betta breeder in Thailand, so I highly recommend you get these basic equipment to set you up for success. Regarding the aquarium filter, it helps keep the water parameters stable. I'm not really concerned about the mechanical filtration here because that's more of an aesthetic thing, but the biological filtration is very important since it will keep the harmful ammonia and nitrite levels to a minimum. The water flow helps oxygenate the water, keeping the beneficial bacteria alive, which is needed for biological filtration to happen. Now, you don't want the water flow to be too strong since bettas don't do well in strong currents, but a sponge filter or power filter with a gentle flow will be great. Before we move on, I want to point out one more thing related to aquarium filters, since this is so important. You may have heard that bettas can breathe air directly from the water surface, so they don't need filters because of this. Now, I want to debunk this myth. While it is true that bettas have a labyrinth organ that allows them to breathe air from the water surface, they still need an aquarium filter. Because like we mentioned earlier, the aquarium filter is oxygenating the water for the beneficial bacteria also. The betta might be fine living in an environment that isn't highly oxygenated, but if the beneficial bacteria can't do their job, it can spike the ammonia and nitrate levels, which are very harmful to the betta. Lastly, without an aquarium filter, it creates a stagnant environment where biofilm can easily form on the top, making it difficult for betta to breathe even from the water surface. Regarding aquarium heaters, I think this is quite straightforward. Bettas prefer a temperature range between 76 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you aren't in a tropical region like Thailand, I think this is difficult to maintain year-round without a heater. Besides the filter and heater, there are many other things you can get to enhance your tank, like gravel, plants, and decorations. But these are mostly either for aesthetics or at the very least optional. Even lights are optional. Personally, I will get all these to make the tank look nice, but none of these are as important as the filter and heater. And of course, if this is a brand new tank that you're setting up, be sure to properly cycle your tank to get the nitrogen cycle going before you add the fish. Next, regarding feeding, be sure to feed it well, but not overfeed it. When in doubt, give it a small portion more frequently rather than a large portion all at once. This will help prevent unnecessary strain on the betta's digestive system and help keep the water from getting overly polluted. As for the type of feed, high quality, high protein diets are recommended. Food specifically made for bettas, freeze-dried bloodworms, and frozen brine shrimp are some of their favorites, among many others. Regarding maintenance, do a 20 to 30% water change every week. This is assuming you have a 5-gallon tank with 1 betta in it. If you have a smaller tank, which isn't recommended, or you have other tank mates, you may need to do water changes more often. Notice that the recommendation here is to increase the frequency rather than the amount. Maybe do 2 water changes per week rather than 1. Now, doing big water changes of more than 50% can be risky, as it could drastically change the water parameters. Lastly, regarding tank mates, this could be a tricky one for bettas. Bettas are notorious for being aggressive, especially towards each other, which is why they are also known as fighting fish. So the easiest thing to do, especially in a 5-gallon tank, is to just keep one betta and let it enjoy its tank in peace. But it doesn't mean they can't have tank mates. You just have to choose carefully. My top recommendation is to keep snails. But if you want to explore other options, check out our video on the 14 best betta fish tank mates.